Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Tree Planners podcast. The title of this episode, I was just noticing, is What's Happening in Wasaga Beach. I can spell, I swear. But welcome, and I think we're offline now on YouTube for some reason. What's going on? Connection was discontinued. Blah. Anyways, welcome. We are recording this, so we'll upload this to YouTube and then cross post with other places as well. I'm joined by Margaret as usual.
Good morning.
And first kind of relatively cool morning in a while. Well, yesterday was relatively cool, but those hot and humid temperatures have broken. But the grass is still brown and brittle. And we're hopefully going to be joined by Ted Crysler, who is a Wasaga Beach resident and also member of Wasaga Beach Climate Action Team. So the goal there would be to talk about what's going on in Wasaga Beach, what's happening in Wasaga Beach,
What's happening?
and I guess Margaret, I guess we'll just dive into it. I guess maybe like give a quick overview of what's happening, and then maybe we can get into some of the concerns around it.
Yeah, first off, I'll just say that I make those spelling mistakes as well, mostly because I have not come to terms with the fact that I need glasses when I'm typing. So I think that I've spelt it properly. I'm going with the memory feel of my fingers. I'm pretty sure I typed that properly. And then inevitably, I'm like, oh, no, actually, I did. So I get that too. For those that are uninitiated, here's Ted. We're talking about Wasaga Beach. We've got a provincial park there. We've got municipal lands there. A lot of people know it as a mainstay in the summer, world's largest freshwater beach, endangered species, and a local economy that's trying to figure out its way into the next century. And so there's lots of complicated things. Good morning, Ted. We're just doing a bit of a context setting for you.
Good morning. Yeah. We literally just started and for some reason we got disconnected from our live streaming, but we're recording and I'll upload to YouTube and cross post to socials as well.
I was wondering, Ted, if you could, there's people that know Wasaga Beach as a place where they go to cottage or to visit, but not many people perhaps understand Wasaga Beach as a community of like what it struggles with or, what the reality of it is like. Do you mind painting us a little bit of a picture of Wasaga Beach as a community, how you see it?
Sure. Yeah. So Wasaga actually has a long history and goes back to really the War of 1812 when the Nancy was one of the supply ships to help the colony of Upper Canada maintain its independence from the United States. And that's actually one of the things that's been going on in Wasaga recently is trying to get support for Nancy Island Historic Site where the Nancy was sunk. So we go back to there, and of course, predating that is Indigenous history. And there have been Indigenous peoples here for a long time, of course, and I can't really speak to that history, but I want to recognize that we came after, shall we say. And after the War of 1812, there's sort of a long gap, and then we've got the beginnings of the more resort town, and you get things happening like the Dardanella, where you get people coming to experience the nightlife and the big bands and what have you. So everything started kind of rolling in the 20s and 30s, I would say, in Wasaga, and it became more of a destination for resort activities, primarily centered on the beach, of course. And it grew from that, but it wasn't an organized town in the sense that you might think of it, because it tended to be summer-based activities only, without there being four season activities or four season support. So it was quite a small town for a long time. And even into the 1970s, there were only, 5 to 10,000 people who lived in Wasaga permanently. But it would swell to 100,000 on weekends when people from Toronto GTA areas would come and visit for the day or come for the weekend or for a week. So it's been known as a resort town. And for a while in the 60s and 70s, it was more of a party town. And also there was, I don't want to say violence, but there was certainly negative activity with things like biker gangs.
Mhm.
So this became quite a problem. And the provincial park was established in the 1950s. But then the decision was made to try and uh, moderate what was going on in Wasaga and stop it from being biker oriented and sort of very lawless in some ways to become more of a town. So the town asked the province for assistance, and the decision was made to expropriate properties along the beachfront to create a bigger provincial park, which is what happened. And then the town had its sort of commercial area towards Beach Area 1 and Beach Area 2, as they are now known. And then there's also been further commercial development. And in the past 50 years, we've seen a very high rate of population growth in Wasaga Beach. It's gone from, that 5 to 10,000 up to 25,000 people. And plans are for it to double in the next sort of 20 years or so. So, big plans for Wasaga, and there needs to be some commercial development. There needs to be an organized pattern of growth for not only residential but also commercial. And there's tensions with that because, of course, our biggest draw is the beach and the natural surroundings, the dunes, the forests, the wetlands. So we have to have some balance between it. And I think this is where we now find ourselves.
Mhm. Would you say that, like, when you're talking about commercial development, sorry, Adam, I'm just kind of on a track, but I'll let you
Go
jump
for
in
it.
the next one. When you're talking about the commercial development, my understanding of Wasaga Beach is that there's a lot of people that move there that are retired that don't really need many jobs, but also the jobs that are there for the youth or for the existing residents are not really in Wasaga Beach. They're either service oriented or like they have to commute elsewhere. Do I have that characterization correct? Oh,
Um, yes, yeah, sorry, my background is going off. I'm not sure what's happening.
we can hear you, but you're frozen.
Oh, can't.
There you
Uh,
go.
okay, I'm back. Sorry,
You're
I'm
back
not
now.
sure what happened there. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in the summer for students like to work at the park and to work in other commercial areas. But and there's been a lot more progress made in full time jobs, but there's no factories in Wasaga Beach. It's mostly just retail and you know the jobs related to the seasonal activities. Whether it's cottage courts or food stands or that kind of thing. So there has been a desire to create more permanent opportunities for people because a lot of people who live here, they're either retired or they commute to their jobs outside of Wasaga, and it would be great if we had more opportunities for people to work within Wasaga, including for students and young people.
Right. Adam, do you want to ask the next one, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah. Keep going. No, I'm listening. It's really. I mean, this does kind of jive with my perception as a semi-frequent visitor to Wasaga, and I don't think I've ever been in Wasaga in the winter or in off kind of season
Mm.
times.
Yeah, it's my own background coming from Halliburton, which is a little obviously more remote than Wasaga Beach, but those kind of places that thrive on the tourism in the summer, when that all goes away, it can sometimes become quite a desolate place, right? Not saying Wasaga is, but there is an element to all of those high tourist areas that when the season goes. So one of the things that people like, I'm just trying to go chronologically a little bit, Ted, into this to give people the full context. So one of the things that's underscoring this recent set of changes is the Wasaga Beach redevelopment plan, but also that Wasaga Beach Council requested from the province to transfer over some of these lands over a year ago or just around a year ago. So,
Mhm.
can you explain what council was trying to do with that redevelopment plan? Maybe about how some of they bought back some of that land. Can you go into that to give context before we get into what the changes are now?
Yeah, and so about 20 years ago or so, there was a devastating fire in the main area of Wasaga, and a lot of the buildings were burned. And then there's been sort of an ongoing movement to try and do something with them, and what's the proper development and what do people want. And so it's taken a fair amount of time to work through that. And then we had different councils and they had different plans, and then we got a different council and they had different plans. So I mean, this is quite common in towns where you get one vision replaced by another vision. So there's been a bit of a holding pattern. And what's happened recently is the most recent council made some decisions and got public input. There was a public consultation processes for people to say what they wanted to see in the main area of the town, and they've decided to move forward with the land that the town owned, with a hotel development, which is going to be some form of Marriott. And then also, Stonebridge is going to build, it's mixed use, so it's housing, like residential, with commercial, usually on the bottom. So they've broken ground on that. Apparently, the hotel would be proceeding next year. So that's the current waterfront development plan on town-owned land. In addition to that, Beach Drive, which is the road that it's quite short, really, but it goes in front of those developed areas along the beachfront, was constantly getting covered with sand. Not surprisingly,
Yeah.
because the prevailing winds keep blowing the sand up. And so the plan for that, to try and make it more permanent, was to raise it and to make it, hopefully, so that the sand would not cover it in coming years. So there's also work being done on the Beach Drive area in front of this redeveloped zone. So that's currently what's going on.
Right.
Then, because I would say, due to underfunding by successive provincial governments, the provincial parks in Ontario in general are seeing crumbling infrastructure and problems within the parks, and it's unfortunate because they're jewels that are owned by the people, and we should be taking better care of them. What this has led to in Wasaga is they've been unable to keep up with the infrastructure and other needs for maintenance, because they were, in my opinion, underfunded. And so we've seen, you know, less beach maintenance. And in the Nancy Island context, the crumbling infrastructure of the buildings, and less appropriate preservation for the hull of the ship that is being preserved in the museum. And so there, I mean, on the Nancy Island side, the Friends of Nancy Island and Wasaga Beach Park had been advocating for some time to um, get some funds to address those deficiencies. And the town wanted to see a better deal with respect to some of the land in the more downtown area where they're doing their current redevelopment, and sort of some of those related areas. So they approached the province and they were having discussions with them with respect to all of these aspects. And I think that there were probably a variety of options for what could happen. And I wasn't in on those discussions, so I don't know what they were. But it could have been transfer from, instead of it being parks taking care of everything, maybe portions went to tourism, the Ministry of Tourism. It could be that there was a management agreement between the province and the town for certain areas, or I guess the other option would have been transfer of land. So all of those discussions, I guess, happened over the past year or two, and then this led to what was announced in May, and I think that's where you're heading. And I'll
Mhm.
stop there in case you want to sort of ask me some questions about
I'm
the.
clarifying. Well, and I think what's really important is that these issues are not just something that came up over the last month or two, right? People may
No.
know of it now, but this is a long-standing issue that the town has been grappling with. Because to your
Yes.
point, there has been, the fire was devastating.
Yeah.
The rumors about Wasaga Beach, all these sort of things have really made an impact on the local economy and the local residents there.
Yes.
And so I agree with you that there has been a consistent underfunding in lots of places, parks being one of them. So, and as I have witnessed from several governments now, one of their things that they like to do is download, meaning something that used to be provincial responsibility taken from provincial coffers now goes to a municipality, which has much more limited coffers, much more limited responsibility, well, not responsibility, much more limited powers, I would say. So it doesn't surprise me that we landed on this based on the behavior of this particular government. But so to just summarize it for those, and again, catch me if I've mischaracterized it, but we've got uh, a local economy that's been fairly devastated by this big fire. There's been lots of conversations happening over decades now about what Wasaga Beach residents, what the town, what the province wants to see kind of happening here. Um, Redevelopment plans are happening for areas that the town already owns. But now we come to this next section where the town made a formal request, and it was unanimously approved, as far as I know, by council to say, can you transfer over environmentally non-sensitive lands, which is key, and
No,
in
not
their
quite.
motion, pretty sure in their
No,
motion
so
they
the
said
wording is a little bit nuanced,
a
but
little more nuanced. Okay,
it yeah, it asks for the beach sections and additional non-environmentally
non-environmentally
sensitive
sensitive
lands.
lands,
So
right?
it's not only non-environmentally sensitive lands within those beach sections. It's those beach sections and
And
additional.
non, I guess why I was making that point was because now it looks like the proposal that the province is putting forward does include environmentally sensitive lands, was which I was trying to.
Yeah, but those environmentally sensitive lands are within the beach portions, right?
Right. Okay. So that's where
So
that.
that's the distinction. I
Right.
wanted to add a little bit of color too. Just in the the council changes, the vision changes, and that stop start nature to the redevelopment progress. But there's also been, and this is probably tied into the change in council. But there's also been a number of development proposals that have fallen through for various reasons, including uh, well, I think fraud convictions, right, on the part of some of the proponents or participants in those. Um, and that all leads me to kind of just like uh, a bigger picture as kind of a seasonal town, at least to date, with a lot of the economy hinging on that seasonal activity. Uh, it seems difficult to me that a Four Seasons, um, not the brand, but like an all season kind of development will ultimately be successful there. Like what is there to anchor the economic success of something like that in what has been to date the off season of the area.
Yeah, so you raise a good point. The goal is to be a four season community. I would say similar to Collingwood. Collingwood has done that fairly
Mm.
successfully and is considered a four-season community now. The Collingwood Town of Blue Mountains, that whole zone to the west of Wasaga. Um, they've got a few things that have happened here. So we have the Twin Pad Arena and Library, and that arena is state of the art and could host not only sporting events like hockey, but also concerts.
Hmm.
And there's a new high school that's going to be built with a theater in it, so there could be local theater. The casino opened in the West End a few years ago, and
This is an important point for all of those on social media who are saying that the land transfers is to facilitate a new casino. There already is a casino in Wasaga.
there's
So,
already a casino. It's very
yeah.
near where I live.
Okay.
But it's in the West End originally, and again, this goes back to different councils with different visions. Originally, it was supposed to be in the main end, and then it ended up here in the West End. So, what we call the West End. So it is what it is. But there's commercial development going in there. I don't know if it's finally been confirmed or not, but the Costco is coming in right by the casino, and there's
Hit the
further
big time.
yeah, there's the further commercial development going on there. So Wasaga has sort of got these five nodes, commercial areas. So there's never been one main downtown like in most older towns. So they're doing their best to try and in a very strung out long town
Along
create
the beach.
some commercial nodes along it. And so there's more of these things coming. The hotel the theory is, will help bring in people year round. They can host weddings, they could host events, they could host
Hmm.
conferences, small ones, and so there might be things that jump off from that. With the redevelopment of Nancy Island, it could help become a more four season as opposed to summer only attraction, which is what happens with the Discovery Harbor and St. Marie among the Hurons, which it's now going to be associated with in Huronia Historical Parks under the Ministry of Tourism.
Mm.
So those are all developments that are, helping to roll towards a more four-season approach. And I presume the goal will be with any further development that's going on, some of it commercial or some of it tourism oriented, that it would be oriented towards four season use rather than solely summer use or summer experiences. And there's things that could happen if you had wellness things that are associated with it. That could be four season, and there could be other attractions that are more four season as well. So there's opportunities. We don't know any details.
Hmm.
Is where we're at. But everyone, I would say, in Wasaga Beach would be supportive of having a more four-season economy as opposed to solely summer, because it would help with the tax base,
Mhm.
right? If you have more commercial, paying commercial taxes, you're not so reliant on um, residential property taxes. So everyone is supportive of that kind of approach.
Mhm.
Now, again, you may want to. I'll stop there.
Well,
Um,
we can go into like what's proposed now. I know
yeah.
Adam. I don't know. Adam has a map, and we can discuss. He can put it up when he sees fit. But so we wanted to give So,
Yeah.
do you guys want to, between the two of you, explain what the province is proposing and some of those details? Because there's what Adam and I have been noticing is there's been quite a lot of flattening of this issue and making it very much like this is what's happening. It's all being sold to developers, everything. And we're not trying to here to say that it's all good or it's all bad, but to try to parse apart the things that make sense, the things that have historical context, and then what are the actual concerns about this proposal that
Yeah.
have nothing to do with Wasaga Beach growing as a community, but maybe have more to do with provincial policy and precedent setting,
Yes.
rather than flattening it into a discussion of like this is just all terrible. That's what we're trying to parse apart. So maybe I don't know, between you and Adam, Ted can outline what's been proposed.
Yeah, it's a more nuanced thing that's happening. And number one, I will say, as a friend of Nancy Island, I worked at Nancy Island as a student for 3 summers, so it's near and dear to my heart. Uh, I think most people, in fact, I don't know anybody who isn't happy that Nancy Island will be getting $25 million to be redeveloped like appropriately and to ensure the integrity of the hall, proper preservation, and the transfer to the Ministry of Tourism is a good thing. And being part of the Huronia Historical Parks community will be a positive thing as well. So I think there's a lot of excitement about that. And you know, recognizing its place in history, and it's a significant piece of our history that a lot of Canadians don't know about, and even people in this region don't know about. If it weren't for the Nancy and the crew, including voyageur and Indigenous peoples, we could all be American right now, because it helped ensure that we kept control of the Upper Lakes in the War of 1812. So I want to say that from the beginning is I really don't know anybody who's unhappy about Nancy Island becoming part of the Ministry of Tourism, going away from Parks. Parks just wasn't getting the funds to properly support it, which was unfortunate because it wasn't that they didn't want to help, it's that they didn't have the funds to help, and they were strapped. So that's number one. Then you get into at the announcement in May, the premier did say that the transfer was based on the beach itself always remaining public. So that is an underlying part of the deal. The water lots that the province owns are not being transferred. It's only the beach and then some of the dunes areas and some adjacent lots as well. So that's what's being transferred in Beach Area 1 and 2 and New Wasaga. Um, excuse
Can I just get you to clarify, because some people may not appreciate what water lots means. They might be thinking like, you know, can you just explain that a little bit more?
Well, so you can own, it's sort of odd, I suppose, but you can own property that goes into the water. So if you've got a lot, and then you've got the beachfront, and then you've got the water, because the water is coming in and out all the time as well, right? It goes up and down. And so there is, with the beachfront, the province has owned into the water. And I think it's partly, I don't actually know all the reasons behind it, but it's for safety and to ensure that they can control what's going on there. You don't have motorboats roaring in and killing people and what have you. Also, you need landing rights for boats if they're in distress. So it's probably things along those lines, but I don't want to go too into that because then I'd be talking about something I don't know about.
No, that's fair. So continue on. Sorry, Ted. I just wanted to clarify that because sometimes we talk in language that people that aren't involved in this world go like, "What is he talking about?" So
What is a water? How can you have
what
a
is the water
water?
law? What does that mean? Okay,
Why
so
do you
continue
own
on. The
why do you
water
need
lots,
water?
yeah, the water lots won't be transferred.
No, no. So and um, so the concerns are on the environmental side, particularly with the piping plover bird species, which is an endangered species and has been nesting in Wasaga. It's one of the four main remaining nesting sites for this species, mostly in the Beach Area 1 zone. That it's going to continue to be protected. So many people in the environmental sphere are concerned that if you transfer from parks to the town or anybody else that there may not be the proper ecological knowledge and systems to support it. So that's one area of concern. Also, environmentally, the dunes, people don't sort of realize, but the beach here is not um, constantly being replenished. It's called relic sand. It's what we have is what we've got, and we won't get any more. So you have to be careful in how you manage it, including the dunes areas. And dunes are constantly shifting. Like that's just the nature of dunes as well. So what does that look like? You know, there's concerns. Well, what could happen? They could be removed or what have you. And you know, these are valid concerns. And then also in the adjacent lots, what kind of use will be made of them? Is the town going to maintain ownership? Will they be sold to developers to put up condos or something else? We don't know. And I think it's the uncertainty surrounding some of these things. The town has been very reassuring. The mayor and the town itself have put out notices, like information notices, and done interviews saying, rest assured, the beach will always remain public, as Premier Ford said. There will be no privatization of the actual beach area. The town will be maintaining the beach. So they've been purchasing new equipment to do maintenance and raking and what have you of the beach area, because now they're going to be responsible for that. And that, you know, they will respect the ecological nature of the beach and dunes areas, and there's no plans to get rid of the plovers, and there's no plans to raise the dunes and what have you, and that there'll be a public consultation process that supports what is going to happen. And um, again, it's really mostly because there seems to be no exact plan. I remember when the announcement was happening, a reporter asked the premier, "So what's going to happen with these lands? Like, what's the plan?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. It's going to be great, and you know, Mayor Smith has some great plans, great thoughts, great vision for this." And he turned and he said, "So I don't know, Brian, what are you going to do with the lands?" And so we were all going, "Oh, okay." So I think, you know, it's a work in progress is the point to be taken there, and the town has assured the residents that they will be part of that process and there'll be consultation, and they did do that with the current stage of development in the main area as well. And Adam, you may want to jump in because I'm sure I've forgotten a few things to explain here as well.
Well, I thought also it would be useful to distinguish between the transfer of land being made to the municipality and the land being taken out of the provincial park. So there's two different kind of things happening there, but then there's also an overarching thing with the entire proposal, which is um, so as you mentioned, like it is a nuanced, complicated situation. Um, and perhaps like the most kind of confounding aspect of the proposal on the environmental registry site is it actually isn't about the land transfers or withdrawals from the park. It's about amendments to a piece of legislation that uh, doesn't just affect Wasaga Beach Provincial Park. It affects all provincial parks.
Yes.
Um, and so it's interesting the way that it's framed on the environmental registry proposal, which is that this is meant to facilitate withdrawing lands from the provincial park and transferring a portion of them to Wasaga Beach for these long desired development goals. And in order to do so, changes need to be made to the legislation that affects all provincial parks, um, which is something that we should address. So the legislation, I don't have that. I can find the exact
The PCPA, the prevent or the
Provincial Parks and Conservation Reserves Act. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Section 9(4). So there's a requirement if if more than 1% or 50
Mhm.
hectares of the area of a park is to be removed, then there's a set of steps that are required to be taken. So the minister has to bring forward a report on the proposal that goes before the legislature, and then the legislature votes on it. And
to safeguard the sanctity of the borders of the park. Like it's not supposed to just be taken at willy nilly. Is the purpose of that?
That's
Right,
right.
and provincial parks are, they're held in trust for all of us, right? It's not, I know that there's gray area in sort of electing our representatives and then making decisions on our behalf and this sort of thing, but there is supposed to be this kind of more democratic process undertaken in order to make changes to these areas that are actually really significant in our collective experience of this area we share together, right? Um, so the changes, we don't actually know what these changes are. I mean, the best of my knowledge, like there is no information on the environmental registry with respect to what changes exactly they want to make to the legislation.
Yeah.
The only information up there um, is this allusion to these changes at Wasaga Beach Provincial Park. Um, so what's interesting to me is that these changes to so now we get into a little bit of the math, I think, of the proposal here. So um, altogether, the amount of land being removed from Wasaga Beach Provincial Park is roughly a third of the area. uh, it's a significant chunk and easily more than that 50 hectares, easily, obviously more than the 1%. Um, and that includes these underwater portions, uh, Nancy Island, these beach areas. Um, but then when you sort of whittle it down to the sort of practical areas that there's a use case involved in terms of their transfer to the town, uh, the the mayor has said in his statement that that amounts to about 60 hectares, close to that 50 hectare size. But then he's also added that only about half of that transfer would be used. The other half is environmentally sensitive area, which would remain protected. So now you're getting down to like 30 hectares, which is under that amount, under that limit, less than 1%. So, I mean, that just leaves me with the question in the back of my mind is why are they making these changes to the legislation if that sort of actionable amount of land that actually is useful to the municipality is under that threshold. I don't. So that's kind of what makes me kind of go, what's the real reason behind this?
Yeah, and the transfer. So another aspect of this, the town is going through its official plan update process, and I think there's some desire to see the town reflect the environmentally sensitive areas as environment protected designation in this plan. So, the beach area and the dunes area, since they are environmentally sensitive, they should be properly designated so that they can't be developed. Because the dilemma, I've alluded to council in, council out, different visions. There'll be a new council in 2026, and we don't know what they will want to do. There'll be a
And
new.
there's no legislative
That's right.
protection above the municipal level to
Yes.
sort of lock those protections in stone.
That's right. And with Bill 5, the Endangered Species Act is gone and it's a different regime. So for things like piping plovers or hognose snakes or whatever, there's again uncertainty about how they might be dealt with, whether they're going to be covered by provincial or federal or municipal. So, some certainty around the environmentally sensitive lands issue would help, and that could be reflected in the plan. And then figuring out how the rest of the land that's being transferred is going to be designated would also help provide some certainty. Nothing can really be done until the transfer is effected, which is not going to occur till later this year, or could even get pushed into next year. I don't know, because they have to wait till the legislature is resuming in October. But that is another aspect. You've got, you know, if the town is going to proceed on that, how is it going to address it in the official plan? Because this is going to be new areas that were not covered.
Yeah. And I think I just want to underscore here, when the province keeps talking about, wanting to get things built and wanting to get things done, what those in the developer world or municipal world talk about is that certainty. There's a certainty, and there's a policy certainty that allows things to proceed, with some sort of linear fashion. But what we have seen over, what has it been, 6 years now, 2018 they came in, 7 years, whatever happens to be, is a consistent dismantling of all of the things that the processes that would have been in place to help this. So the Endangered Species Act is one of them. Bill 5, as you referred to, Conservation Authority Act, what happens to the Ontario Lands Tribunal when a developer now appeals. There's less rights for the public to get involved. Municipality could be easily suffering cost awards. Like all of these things, that constant dismantling has left, municipalities always had a difficult time going above and beyond provincial policy. But now the safety net that was there at the provincial level is just not there. So this is kind of my concern with it. It isn't that the municipality is evil-hearted and they want to take out the dunes, but the practical nature of it is first, this council can't bind, even if they're well-intentioned, they can't bind a future council to certain actions. So that's fine. You're going to have a new council, and you're going to have successive new councils. Whatever policies are put into the official plan now can be appealed to by developers with more concern about, you have to have more experts, and you don't have as much with like it just becomes a bit of a mess. And then you can't, the reason why that park policy was important, even giving all the context, was because at least there was an ecological priority for those lands, right? That's what the policy is supposed to protect. You take it out of there, you put it into municipal policy, they put in something really stringent, let's say, and now you don't have any real provincial policy, because the OLT, the Ontario Lands Tribunal, where they go to appeal these cases, is going to defer to the strongest policy, which is generally the provincial policy, because developers can argue that municipalities are going above and beyond. That's not necessary. The province has set something up. And so now you're looking at it from a perspective that the thing that municipalities could use is like, well, at least we have the province to argue for this, is no longer there. And that doesn't mean everything is lost. At the same time, it doesn't give us much assurance that this is going to be managed well, even if the town is well intentioned, because all it takes is the wrong set of circumstances and no provincial policy to protect those things. And now we're back into an uncertainty, which makes everybody freak out, because we have seen the habits of this government, unfortunately, are not about environmental protection, and they're not about sustainable development, and they're not about long-term vision, to be quite frank. So that's the part of this that kind of irks me a little bit, is that it's not the town is a terrible party. It's more of that they are limited in a very unsafe, environmentally nasty kind of provincial policy ethos, that they really don't have the support to do the right thing, even if they wanted to do the right thing from a policy or legislation perspective.
Yeah. And I share the concern with the wording that was put forward. We don't really know the goal of the wording change. When they put it through, it could be quite specific to Wasaga Beach only, or it could be framed more generally to say we're changing the regime for how we remove parkland and it will simply go to executive council, i.e., the cabinet, instead of to the actual legislature. I mean, when you have a majority government, if it goes to the legislature, you're still going to pass it anyway. But having that democratic aspect taken away and centering it in the executive side, I don't think is a good idea. But again, we don't know that that's how exactly it's going to play out. And the province has sort of said, no, this is specific to Wasaga, but we don't see the details of that yet. And I think you're also right, Margaret, to point out that there's just so much uncertainty about everything right now that trying to blue sky this is very difficult. Like, we don't know how it will play out in the end. And I do believe that the current council, is well intentioned. I think a lot of non Wasaga Beach people look at the transfer of the actual beachfront itself and are going, well, why isn't the province keeping that and just transferring, as Adam pointed out, the lands that might be more subject to economic development of some sort? I think that's a question people are asking, and I don't have the answer to why that went that route. The town made it, I guess, a point that they can maintain it better than the parks can, and that's what they're going to do as far as the beach itself goes.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean that so I mean that rests in my head as like the key question too, because also if you're just looking at those kind of developable areas, at least currently developable areas, that seems pretty clearly under the threshold, and they'd be able to do that without having to go through this Section 9(4) process in the legislature. But then your point to maintaining the land, and Margaret's earlier point around sort of and yours, which you back the lack of resources that the parks have had to be able to address upkeep and maintenance in modernization of the facilities. I know that there's been with Allenwood, for example. It's my favorite beach. I love it. It's absolutely a beautiful beach, a bit off the beaten track, less crowds than the Beach One area and that sort of thing. But the washroom facilities there are disgusting. Like you don't want to get anywhere near those things. And I know that there's been periods over the last several years where they've also been closed during peak season because the park has lacked funds to be able to maintain them properly. So the town has a legitimate concern there that perhaps they can actually maintain these areas better, and and that sort of goes towards that goal of
Yeah.
bringing more people and making it a more desirable destination.
The lack of maintenance reflects poorly on the town. Like,
Mm,
this is the dilemma, um, which are, irks the town, because we're going, well, it's not our fault that it's not being maintained. It's the province who's supposed to be doing it, and they're not doing it effectively. And again, I say because of underfunding. But the people who come here, the tourists, don't know the difference.
yeah.
Is there any money that's going to be given to the town to help with the upkeep at all?
Well, they gave a few $1 million with respect to coming up with plans and designs for the future development and what have you. But I think it was 2 million. Don't quote me. So a small amount of money towards that, and I believe that with some of the purchase of equipment, some of the money would go towards that as well, like the special rakes for the beach and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think there is some plan to provide some funds, but I don't believe there's any plan to have like an annual maintenance budget that's going to come from the province. So there's another uncertainty: is, well, how are we funding this now as the town? If the town's taking it over, we're going to have to pay for the maintenance activities and any upkeep and infrastructure costs and this type of thing. So how is that going to be addressed? And the town's going to have to come up with some plans for that, and share it with the citizens, with the residents of the town.
This
Well, I
might
think
sorry, this might indicate another issue which I don't really know anything about, but it's curious that so Wasaga Beach is the most popular Provincial Park, has been for the last 3 years running, and prior to that, and certainly prior to the fire as well, was the most popular provincial park. Um, and so it's just like, I wonder if there's something in the park funding formula, and maybe fees, visitor fees. I mean, I think for Wasaga, a large part of that's probably parking fees and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Goes back into the general pool and then is dispersed based upon whatever sort of leadership determines the needs of the various parks around the province might be. And
Yeah.
so maybe Wasaga is getting a little bit of a short shrift there. It's subsidizing some other parks, perhaps.
Yeah. And I don't know all the financial side of things. I don't know if there are any parks that are actually self sustaining. Like the money
Mm,
they bring in covers all the costs that they do.
mm,
Um, there may be. I don't believe Visaga is one of those. The money it brings in doesn't necessarily cover the costs of the annual upkeep.
mhm.
Maybe it does, but I don't believe so. So, we don't expect, well, listen, I don't expect that parks are meant to be money making ventures that are necessarily self sustaining. They're for the people, and it's a thing that government should do for people's health and well-being and mental health and what have you. And that's a cost that I'm willing to bear as a taxpayer. Like, I think it's great. And the more parks the better, so that people can get out in them and enjoy nature or recreation or whatever it may be.
Hmm. Well, I think that for those that are interested and are or are not connected to our newsletter, Adam did a really great issue brief. And we wanted to have you on today, Ted, because I think Adam and I have both been irked by the flattening of the issue of like Wasaga Beach is being sold to developers. Um, which there's so much to this, the Nancy Island historical piece, what's actually being transferred, what does Wasaga Beach already own, what, the provincial policy changes. It's really difficult to understand an issue when you flatten it so clearly into a binary of like you're either good or you're bad. Either the town now is bad, and they're with develop, like it just starts this whole conspiracy campaign, if you will. And anybody that's followed us for a long time knows that Adam and I are not the type that's going to be, yes, we're pro big business, pro big developers, pro capitalism. Like, we don't mind getting into the controversy of it, which is why we do have concerns about the Parks Act. We do have concerns about the uncertainty about the endangered species. We do have concerns about certainties about public access. Sure, people can say it, but we need to see it somewhere. We need to see it written down so that it can be, and at a provincial level, not at a local level. There needs to be some assurances from the province. But we wanted to give our viewers the credit of knowing that they're intelligent enough to be able to understand the nuance, so that we can pick apart the things that we should be really concerned about and not get so inflamed with these overly simplistic binaries that really don't help anybody advocate for what actually needs to be advocated for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I
you make
appreciate the opportunity to hopefully help clarify a little bit of that, because it is, I mean, it's taken us an hour to work through it, and we could still be talking more about it, frankly.
yeah.
But I think we've covered the main areas for it, and it's important. I get that it's an important issue, because if it does affect all parks in Ontario, then people are rightly, concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ted, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. We always end with three questions
Uh-oh.
for our guests. So, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to make a difference?
Get involved.
Nice.
Yeah, like, just we need volunteers pretty much in every area of, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's environment or something else, just get involved in something, get out there.
Short and sweet. How do you think about failure, and how do you respond when it happens?
Well, failure is a learning opportunity. I do believe that. And you shouldn't be afraid of failure. It gives you the chance to reflect on, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? And to make changes based on that learning.
And what's something you've been enjoying recently? It could be a book, a podcast, a song, an album, an activity, whatever.
Well, I do live at Wasaga Beach.
Yeah, right.
So I've been, because of all these hot evenings, I've been spending a lot of time in my hammock.
Oh,
And
nice.
I'll just put on the tunes and sit back and maybe sip a cool beverage and enjoy the stars if it's a clear night. And there was one night I had a lot of falling stars. It was a meteor shower or whatever. I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. That was really great. And I've been doing as much reading as I can as well, both sort of pleasure as well as more dense reading, and trying to get through as many books as I can, which I try and do a lot of in the summer when I've got hopefully a little more time. But there's been a lot going on, so I haven't been able to do quite as much reading as I might like.
How about one of those books? Anything pop to mind as something that people might enjoy? That's a little bit off the beaten track, perhaps.
Well, I read Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, The History of Information Networks, and I've been
Hmm.
encouraging people to read that book because I think it's really helpful for understanding how we've got to where we are with social media and where we're going with artificial intelligence. I read a few years ago The Next Civil War by Stephen March, a wonderful Toronto based journalist. It's all about what's going on in the US and what could be coming down the pipe in the next sort of 50 years as well. And
Yikes.
yeah, so I think that those might be good books. And if you're looking for a more fun read, there's Adam Schultz, Shoalts. He does these amazing. He's a explorer, adventurer with the Canadian Geographic Society. He does these amazing canoe trips into the middle of nowhere and what have you, where the falcon flies alone against the north beyond the trees. A history of Camden Tim maps. Really fascinating. He's got a PhD, but he's very approachable. He's got a dry sense of humor. I've seen him in person. His books are fantastic. If you get a chance, give him a read.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ted, for coming on. And I hope for the viewers get a chance to read Adam's issue brief. Wasaga Beach Climate Action Team is one of our coalition members. And if you live in the area, or if you're concerned about the future of Wasaga Beach, then I would suggest getting connected with them because they're right in the middle of the hot spot. They have good connections with council and local agencies and are really concerned about obviously climate, but also the future of the beach and everything that happens there. So do you have a website, Ted?
Yeah, the Wasaga Beach Climate Action Team, you just Google that, you will find our website, and it's got a lot of information and links and what have you. So, yeah, I do encourage, if you've got concerns, please do reach out. We'd be happy to chat with you, or if you want to volunteer and work with us or come to our meetings, that would also be great.
All right. Anything else, Adam? We're back next week.
We're back next week.
I don't think I'll be on next week, though, because I have a conflict. I have a meeting somewhere else. So it might be Adam on his own next week. I just told him. Surprise!
Next week should be really interesting too. We have Ray Tamalti. He's an academic professor at McGill, I believe, and he is his area of expertise is urban planning, 15-minute cities. So we're going to talk about 15-minute cities, what they are, some of the myths and misconceptions around them, and maybe get into that whole conspiracy theory area a little bit too.
Oh, sounds good.
Sounds
Yes.
awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And if you like the podcast, of course, subscribe. And actually, for the first time ever, I left a review, or no, sorry, I rated a podcast, and it's actually relatively simple to do, but apparently it helps a lot in discoverability. So give that a shot too. All right. Thanks. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye bye.